And hello once again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the JetFuel podcast, the podcast all about New York Jets football. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, along with Kyle Stickles and Pat Davis. And we're back after a 1 week hiatus. The Jets were on a bye week last week, so we took a bye week ourselves, but back and lots to talk about here on this episode as the Jets are coming off their biggest win of the year, maybe their biggest win in several years, as they defeated the Philadelphia Eagles back before the bye week. And what a huge win it was for the Jets, knocking off the defending NFC champion and previously unbeaten Philadelphia Eagles. And we'll see what impact that big win after beating Denver a couple of weeks ago as well has on the Jets, as they seem to have things rolling right now, winning the last couple of games going into the bye week. But a big one coming up this weekend as they take on the rival New York Football Giants. And what a big game it always is when the Jets and Giants get together. MetLife Stadium will be rocking for that one, no doubt about it. So got Kyle and Pat here. Going to start off with the first question of the night. Just how big a win was it, guys, for the Jets beating the defending NFC champions with the struggles they've gone through at times this year, losing Aaron Rodgers, having to go with Zach Wilson, who's getting better every week. Kyle, how big of a win was that?
Oh, I'd say it was a huge win. Definitely changing the odds of things, proving that any team can win on any given Sunday. Jets going into this game, I don't think anybody saw them winning against Philly at all, and they completely just showed that anyone can win. The defense played phenomenal. The offense was executing plays, and they were basically shutting down Jalen Hurts, top 5 quarterback in the league, all day basically.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there, Kyle, about the defense. Anybody can beat anybody on a given day, as you said, but when you've got a defense like the Jets have, that makes it even more likely. Pat, how big of a win was it for the Jets?
Oh, I agree with Kyle. I think it was a monster win, Keith, for them to beat the NFC champions last year and Super Bowl participant. I mean, that's big. A lot of confidence, I think, was given on both sides. Not only that, the offense has a little more confidence now. I think the defense has even more confidence. And we already know that they've got a very good defense, and we're just trying to see whether it can turn into a great defense. But they really played well. They did everything they had to do to win the game, and I think it's a monster win.
You mentioned that they're turning into a great defense. Let's talk about that right now. Can we now say, Kyle, that the Jets defense is officially one of the elite defenses in the league? They were 4th in the league last year. I heard some people saying they thought, they might take a step backwards. I think, if anything, they're taking steps forward.
Yeah, I'd say they're definitely an elite defense. C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams have shown this year that they're one of the best, arguably the best linebacker duo in the NFL. And even this past game, just having both of your starting corners out, and Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, and still having practice squad guys step up against receivers like A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, still winning that game is unbelievable. And I think it shows that this defense can play anyone and step up to the plate any given day.
Pat, what do you think? Is this an elite defense now? Is this among the best defenses in the NFL?
I think it is. I think it's not only becoming an elite defense, it may already be, as Kyle mentioned, having 2 starting defensive backs out there, and these guys filling in the holes and still getting interceptions and still getting fumble recoveries. Jermaine Jefferson had a great game. And as Kyle said, they got 2 of the best linebackers in the league, and Mosley and Williams. Those guys are always around the ball. And I can't wait to see if they even get better beyond that. They get Sauce Gardner and their other defensive back this weekend from concussion protocol. So I'm looking forward to see them play against the Giants this week.
So speaking of the defense, the offense It's been a work in progress. They've been getting better every week with Zach Wilson at the helm. The offense is going to be what the offense is, though, I think, at this point without Aaron Rodgers. So can this team, Kyle, be a playoff team? Can their defense carry them to the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. The defense, I think, is definitely going to keep this team in games week in and week out. Holding Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts so far this season, uh, having them throw quite a few interceptions and just the relentless pressure they've been given on quarterbacks, I think they can definitely be keeping themselves in games. But we also got to look at the fact that the offense has to capitalize more in the red zone, as we saw against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, the offense has got to put points on the board when they get the opportunity. They did just enough against the Eagles, and the defense got the job done against Jalen Hurts and company. What do you think, Pat? Can the defense alone carry this team to a playoff spot?
I think the defense is definitely going to help them get into a playoff spot. They say offense sells tickets, defense wins games. But eventually, the offense is going to have to step up and be more consistent. I think they did some good things too. The combination between Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson, that was on display. Brees Hall went out there and did his thing again, as he does. Seems to do every week. They need to get Dalvin Cook more involved in the offense, and Michael Carter also coming off the bench a little more. But they're doing well with what they have on the field right now, Keith. And if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
Right, exactly. Changing gears a little bit here, Aaron Rodgers was on the field throwing Sunday. He's healing quicker than expected, although, in the last few days, he's gotten a little frustrated from what I've read. It's starting to slow down a little bit, his progress. But he was talking being back by the end of the season. Do you guys think this is a good move if he's available late in the season? Should he just rest up and let Zach Wilson get the job done, let him develop this year? What do you think, Kyle? Should they rush Aaron Rodgers back late in the season?
I'd say only if he's 100%. I would keep him. Let Zach be in there and keep playing. I wouldn't rush it too much just to avoid aggravating the injury a little more. And you also got to look at it. He's a little old, so you don't want to go in there too much.
Right, exactly. And also, this is unprecedented, right? I mean, he's had different kind of treatments than other guys have had, but it would be unprecedented for somebody to come back that fast, Pat. What do you think? Should they just wait it out with Aaron Rodgers and let Zach Wilson finish out the season regardless?
I think it's a tough decision either way, Keith. I mean, I think you wait and see how the season goes, and hopefully Zach Wilson, continues to play well, and they don't have to make a decision like that. But you're paying a guy $37 million a year. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot. I don't think you rush it back because, you rush him back and he tears the thing or re-injures it. Maybe it's career ending instead of just rehabilitation, getting ready for next year. It's a tough decision because you got a lot of guys on 1 or 2 year contracts also, Dalvin Cook, Cobb, even though he isn't playing, really playing that well right now anyway. But you got some guys that are on 1-2 year deals who either are going to have to decide whether they want to come back next year or whether they're going to go on and try to journey on to another ball club.
Before we take a break, just looking at some stats from the game, we've really talked a lot about how key the defense was for the Jets in beating Philadelphia. None of the numbers really on offense were impressive, but it was just enough with that great defense to get the job done. Zach Wilson was 19 of 33 for 186 yards. Brees Hall, 12 carries, only 39 yards, but did have a touchdown. Xavier Gibson, 1 catch for 18 yards, or 1 run actually for 18 yards. Going down to the receiving, it was Garrett Wilson with 8 catches for 90 yards. Brees Hall out of the backfield, 5 catches for 54 yards. Tyler Conklin, 3 catches for 24 yards. So not very huge offensive numbers, but when you've got an elite defense like the Jets have, the offense just needs to be efficient, not turn the ball over. and they definitely were that as they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending NFC champions, 20-14 before the bye week. When we come back, another big game coming up this weekend at MetLife Stadium. It's the rivalry game against the New York Giants, and we'll talk about that after this break. This is the Jet Fuel Podcast. And welcome back to the Jet Fuel Podcast, along with Kyle Stickles and Pat Davis. I'm your host, Keith Harrington, and we've just looked back at the big win before the bye week by the Jets as they defeated the unbeaten Philadelphia Eagles, unbeaten at the time, the defending NFC champions. And now a big game coming up, a chance really for the Jets, a golden opportunity, if you will, to win their third straight as they take on the struggling New York Giants at MetLife in the big rivalry game. And the Giants, though, coming off a win, Tyrod Taylor, Saquon Barkley helped lead them to a win last week over the Washington Commanders. And it was the defense finally playing like they thought that the Giants defense would play that led them to that win against the Commanders. Tyrod Taylor was solid. Saquon Barkley back and playing well. So the Jets coming off the bye week, the Giants coming off a win, but the Jets before the bye week getting their biggest win maybe in a few years. Kyle, who do you think has the advantage in this one? Is the Jets riding the high off that win over the Eagles, or the Giants coming off their win, and the Jets, of course, having the factor of the bye week in there?
I'd say the Jets in this one have the advantage coming off of the bye week. I think the Giants, they only beat a not very good Commanders team by a touchdown. And I think the Jets, in the past few years, they've played the Giants. They've done pretty well. I read a stat line the other day that the last time they played, Saquon Barkley had 13 carries for 1 yard. So I think this defense is going to hold their offense down pretty well. But I think offensively, the Jets need to keep Zach protected.
Yeah, that's a real key, keeping the quarterback protected on both sides, because neither side has had great success with their offensive lines, although the Jets' offensive line obviously played much better against the Eagles, played better against Denver, and the Giants' offensive line, pieced together as it is, played really well against the Commanders, the best they've played all year. So the offensive line, which one of their maligned offensive lines plays the best, is going to be a big factor in this one. But what do you think, Pat? Is it the Giants coming off a win, or the Jets coming off a big win with a bye week who's got the advantage here?
I'm thinking that the Jets may have the advantage. Hopefully they got some rest and still not overly rested and not rusty, able to come back and still play well. Like you said, and like we've been talking about the whole season about the defense. You know, you don't get as rusty on defense as you sometimes do on offense. So I look to see that the Jets will probably beat these guys by a few points.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit fearful as a Giants fan in this game because their offensive line has struggled, played better against the Commanders, but man, their offensive line maybe going against the best defense they've gone against yet here against the Jets. So their offensive line is going to have to play huge. And that gets us to the keys to the game between the Jets and the Giants. I mean, obviously, as we've already mentioned a little bit, the offensive line, both offensive lines have struggled. Whichever offensive line is able to play better against the other team's defense, I think is going to be the key to this one. Of course, nobody expected that it was going to be a Zach Wilson versus Tyrod Taylor matchup. Everybody thought it was going to be a Daniel Jones versus Aaron Rodgers matchup. So quarterback play, obviously, I think along with offensive line play is going to be the key. Kyle, what do you think? What are the keys to the Jets and the Giants?
Yeah, I'd say for the Jets, like I said before, the offensive line, especially with Joe Tippmann still not practicing, the offensive line's a little bit wonky, having some guys move around in there. And I'd just say mostly on offense, just capitalizing on plays in the red zone. Like we saw in the Eagles, you can't be in the 15 or beyond and then still not walk away with a touchdown. Got to see more on that. And I think the defense, though, I think they'll take care of things, though.
Yeah, the red zone is going to be important. The Giants have struggled in the red zone. They had the big play at the end of the Buffalo game. They couldn't pull off the win there with the ball right on the goal line. Same thing happened, although it ended up being a win against the Commanders, but they couldn't get the ball in at the goal line a couple of times. I mean, red zone is definitely going to be a factor. What do you think is the key? The Jets and the Giants, Pat?
I think, like you said, Keith, the first key is for either team to work on their red zone play. Neither of them can seem to get in the end zone other than field goals. I think the defense continues to play well. They should be okay. The offense definitely has to get better. And one thing I think they really have to concentrate on is not only the pass protection, but Zach Wilson has to get rid of that ball sooner. He has to get rid of that ball. If you don't have anybody after you do your first and your second read, either get out of the pocket and get rid of it or throw it in the vicinity of somebody, but away from the defenders and live to face another down.
Yeah, and I've been reading a lot of Giants fans on a lot of the social media pages talking just about that with Tyrod Taylor. The one thing that Tyrod Taylor has done better than Daniel Jones behind an offensive line that's struggling is get rid of the football. He seems to be able to get the football out of his hand quicker, make decisions quicker, go through his progressions quicker than Daniel Jones was. And so now you got the debate going on among the Giants fans of, was the offensive line that bad, or was it was just that Daniel Jones was not getting the ball out of his hand quick enough, and Tyrod Taylor seems to be doing that. So that remains to be seen further on down the road, I guess, for the Giants when Daniel Jones is ready to come back and play. Coming up next, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles, Taylor Swift's two teams, dating Travis Kelce, and she's a big Eagles fan. Are they destined to play in the Super Bowl? Or are there some of the other teams who have struggled as of late that can still put it together and make a run? We'll talk about that in just a bit coming up on the Jet Fuel Podcast. And welcome back, everybody, to the final segment here of the Jet Fuel Podcast for this week. I'm Keith Harrington, along with Kyle Stickles and Pat Davis. And right now, it looks like Kansas City and Philadelphia are the teams to beat. They seem to be on a collision course when it comes to the Super Bowl. Kansas City, I think, has established themselves as the favorite in the AFC, like they weren't already at the beginning, but I think some people were thinking maybe the Bills or Miami could be in the mix. Philadelphia, the defending NFC champions, despite the loss to the Jets, I think you've still got to count them as the favorite. But some of the other contenders have been struggling lately. The 49ers have lost 2 in a row. The Bills have lost 2 out of their last 3. The Lions got absolutely shellacked by the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens seem to be coming on strong, but they're a team that's quite a bit inconsistent. And there's a lot of things going on. Miami has already lost Waddle and now might be losing Tyreek Hill. They could have both of them out. Buffalo has been banged up on defense. Seems like they're just relying on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and they really don't have much else. McCaffrey's back for the 49ers, but Deebo Samuel is out. Brock Purdy has a concussion. So a lot to be determined here. So right now, it looks like Kansas City and Philadelphia could be setting themselves up for the Taylor Swift Bowl here. But the question is, who do we think can bounce back out of those teams that are having a hard time right now? I personally think if anybody's going to bounce back out of that group, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, if they get Brock Purdy through concussion protocol, Christian McCaffrey's back. If they get Deebo Samuel back, Ayuk has been playing outstanding. Kittle at tight end, that defense. I think if anybody's going to upset the apple cart there between Kansas City and Philadelphia, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC race. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to go with that too, Keith. I think when the San Francisco 49ers are healthy, I think they're the best team in football. I think they're absolutely loaded on all sides of the ball with McCaffrey, Kittle, and then Trent Williams is also hurt, one of the best tackles in all of football and just that defense. I think when they're healthy, they can beat anybody in the league. But for now, since they're banged up, it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, and like someone I was listening to, I think it was today driving into work, said, you got to remember, yeah, they've lost 2 in a row. Brock Purdy did exactly what he needed to do in that Cleveland game. He put together a great drive late in the game, drove the 49ers down the field, only to have their field goal kicker miss what should have been a relatively routine kick. So really, yeah, they've lost 2 in a row, but probably if they get the kick, they've only would have had the one loss. What do you think, Pat, of that group that's kind of struggling in there a little bit? Who do you see coming out to challenge the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. The only one that to me stands out as anybody that could possibly come back into the fold is the 49ers. They, like Kyle said, and like you said, they have everything taken care of on all sides of the ball, whether it even be special teams, defense, or offense. They've just got a great all-around team, and if everybody's healthy, I still see them as the team to beat. The Lions, the Ravens, they could possibly come back at some point and do some good things. But at the end, the Ravens never really score a lot of points. And the Lions, they sort of always curtail at the end of the season. So I'm still going to go with the 49ers like both of you guys and say that if anybody's going to make a run for it, you're still going to have to go through San Francisco.
Yeah, one of the things that people have been saying about Miami is, besides the fact that they've got Waddle hurt and possibly Tyreek Hill out for a while, how healthy is Tagovailoa gonna stay? When they've lost every time they played one of the top teams, got blown out against Buffalo, got beaten by the Eagles. They haven't proven that they can beat the top teams. They've only proven they can beat the other teams at this point. So Miami, I think they've got work to do there. The Lions, discouraging loss, I think, for Lions fans, just getting blown out by Baltimore. And Baltimore just doesn't seem to ever be consistent enough. So, yeah, I think we're all in agreement, Kansas City and Philadelphia. But if the 49ers get healthy, watch out for them. They're probably the best team in the NFL at this point in time. That's going to wrap it up here for another edition of the Jet Fuel podcast. Thanks for tuning in and watching us once again. And to help spread the word, if you're enjoying our podcast that we do once a week, certainly let everybody know. Go to YouTube, to the Nivett Media YouTube page. Don't be afraid to share it with other Jets fans or just other NFL football fans. So it's Thursday night as we record this show. We're probably all off to watch, speaking of the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football tonight. Once again, thanks for joining us. For Kyle Stickles, for Pat Davis, I'm Keith Harrington saying so long. This has been the Jet Fuel Podcast.